Eventually you realize, well, this is probably not really what I want to do. And to kind of understand that calling, especially in the beginning when you just don't like what you're doing, but you don't know what is the next thing you want to do yet, is probably the hardest thing, because you say, well, guys, I'm stopping to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. And when they ask you, okay, so what else do you want to pursue? That's where you don't have the answer. I did go through very hard time. Some of my family members, literally telling me that I'm the biggest disappointment of the whole family. The company over the past 4 years went about this close to bankruptcy, somehow miraculously being saved about 5 times. Whatever the people tell you on the internet how hard it is exactly that hard, but it's also impossible, to kind of convey the experience on you, like I cannot just make you feel how I felt, or how I had to feel a lot of times.
He dropped out of med school in Prague, moved to Dubai with no plan, and somehow ended up running a global recruitment agency from right now in Lisbon. Stefan went from totally lost to building a business and a lifestyle on his own terms. Today, we share how he did it and why most people stay stuck, chasing careers they don't even like. If you're overthinking things, this podcast or this episode can help you with the next step and could be the thing that might give you the right insights to actually get things moving. Because you've been there.
That was indeed.
Because why do most people stay stuck? Or why do most people feel like they're more lives than actually living, especially with their recruitment backgrounds?
That's a great question. So first of all, thank you for having me. Why are people stuck in where something they don't like? Well, it's quite easy, right? It's everyone talks about it. Everyone is probably being told since they were kids on the things they should be doing. There's the whole society is probably pushing them into something, into certain kind of standards or certain kind of virtues they should be chasing. But the problem is that finding yourself is actually requiring a lot of work, and following the system or something that others tell you is actually the easy way, unless you find out what you actually like, and then there's the hard thing because you don't want to get stuck in it. So the reason why people get stuck is that it is comfortable to get stuck. And I was following the same way. As you mentioned, I have been following the classic kind of route. I've been studying, to the best of the grades I could. And when I was choosing what to do, I have just had the idea of, let's do what is the hardest and what is probably going to be the most respectable kind of thing that I can do. And so when I was choosing after my high school, when I was choosing the uni, I chose medicine, and I pursued that. And it was not easy, actually. It was one of the hardest things you can study. Also one of the hardest things you can even try to get into. For about 2,000 applicants, my faculty of medicine was only accepting about 140 students for every year. So, you're really working your ass off towards something that is kind of like prescribed by the society as like, that is the highest goal you can try to achieve. And luckily for me, I have had a certain kind of calling of, this is not exactly what I want to do. And it was also the hard decision to actually drop out, because everyone has a certain kind of, idea of you, what they want you to achieve and who they want you to become. And it's, it's coming from the best of their intentions. It's your family, saying, well, it's going to be amazing. You're going to be a doctor. It's a very stable job. It's something that, will be always needed. And well, now we can speak about AI, but, still people will need people to take care of them. And that is the good path. So you're being kind of positively pressured into something. And eventually you realize, well, this is probably not really what I want to do. And to kind of understand that calling, especially in the beginning, when you just don't like what you're doing, but you don't know what is the next thing you want to do yet, is probably the hardest thing, because you say, well, guys, I'm stopping to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. And when they ask you, okay, so what else do you want to pursue? That's where you don't have the answer. So you have to allow yourself to kind of be lost, which is a very hard thing to do, especially because of external pressure. And eventually, you find yourself somewhere. And hopefully, for everybody listening, it's going to be sooner than later, because that time is very, very difficult for everybody. This is why people get stuck, because it's actually um, the kind of comfortable way. This is what everyone wants from them. And to find out what is the new thing, that you're actually passionate about, can be much harder than most of the people think.
What was that call out for you? When did you realize, when you were in med school in Prague, that you just thought, I work my ass off here? Working your ass off seems kind of a character trait if I look at you in general, but this is not it.
So the cue wasn't one. So basically, to kind of reframe this, um, the calling doesn't have to be like one time, one trigger. It's also, very movie like, everyone think that you should have your clear passion for your whole life. And you should be pursuing it. And at a certain point, or like, you should be something else. And then like at a certain point, there's some big event in your life being like, oh shit, this is not the thing. I should be doing something else. It's exactly what I want to do. Sometimes it comes very sneaky way, very slow and very silent kind of whispers of, this is not really what you want to do, and you got to start listening to it. So it was about 2 years in, when I was at med school, and I actually found it very hard to keep up my motivation and my focus. And I was like, well, I know how to work hard. It was not a problem. I knew what is just procrastination and very lazy. I was just like, I genuinely just don't really care about the things that I'm, reading here about. And so after 2 years of studying, I kind of slowly started realizing that. And it took me another 2 years to actually properly drop out and be like, well, this is not for me. And even though I'm probably going to get a lot of critique, a lot of, negative feedback now from my whole surroundings, including the people closest to me, I just got to make a move. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck in something that I don't want.
How was that to drop out, make that decision to drop out after 4 years? So 2 years, after 2 years, you realized it, and another 2 years of postponing the decision, and then making the decision, listening to that call out.
Mhm.
And then you have the reaction, then you have the feedback of the people around you, then you have
Yeah.
everything.
So I did it. I did this. The way how I did it was basically quite a coward way how to do that. And by the way, another thing where the movies don't really show that to you, but sometimes you just do it, not the perfect way. And for me, it was basically just slowly letting my grades go down, or let's say, basically just not passing the exams. So I could blame it on the performance. I could blame it on, okay, I just didn't make the exam. I just couldn't make it. Rather than admitting that I just don't want to do it for other reasons. So actually, I kind of let myself fail. And I did go through very hard time of some of my family members, literally telling me that I'm the biggest disappointment of the whole family. And that being said, there was people in my family doing pretty bad things in the past, other people. So, when you hear something like that, and you're just like, I'm just not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be something else. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to be still a good person, and all that. This is really what I had to go through, coming from a usually very supportive, very positive family. And I also it took me another 2 years after that to properly find myself, doing what I want to do. And so basically, since bef- the the period between me knowing that I don't want to be a doctor to knowing what I do want to be was actually 4 years, because it was 2 years of quitting med school and another 2 years of just like trying different paths and eventually figuring out what is the thing that I'm really passionate about.
What did you try?
Well, funny enough, actually, I did a lot of stuff. I did a lot of interesting stuff. So first thing that I did when I moved out of med school was, well, for the sake of my family happiness, I kept basically studying. I just switched to different kind of, specializations, not specializations, but basically different universities. So first I was like, well, let me just do the paramedic studies because that's close to medicine. I'm just gonna do that for a while. And it was most of the time, it was really just to silence the people that are asking, oh, what are you gonna do next? So for your family, the best thing that you can tell them is like, I'm gonna study something else, and they will be happy again. Not as happy as when you were studying to be a doctor. So I was studying still. And plus, I started doing a lot of different part time jobs. And by the way, already during my studies, I had times that I had three different part time jobs at the same time while studying because I was also supporting myself and I also wanted to have a certain kind of lifestyle and I wanted to work hard. I always enjoyed that. So, after I quit, I was first thing was that I was driving Uber and Bolt, which is basically the best way how a young person can make extra money. And at that point, I had a car, I had a driver's license. It was not that hard to obtain like an official taxi driver license. You just had to undergo a few certain kind of tests, and then I could work whenever I wanted. And I didn't mind to work the Friday, Saturday night shifts where you can make the most money because this Uber rides and Bolt rides are the most demanded. So I did that while still studying the paramedic studies. Then I joined the law school for a while because I was like, well, that's gonna be something that the people can be happy about. Once again from my surroundings. And in the meanwhile, I was working for other companies. One of them, actually, the first one I was doing full time was actually I've became a car salesman. It was really funny. I just did it for the shits and giggles. Really, I wanted to know how the car salesman operate because it's like the one of the shadiest jobs you can do, right? So I wanted to know the background of how all these cars are being resold to the very naive people and all that. So I did that for about 3 months. I quit right before my probation period ended, so I could just quit immediately. I did get to become a cold caller and eventually sales specialist for a recruitment agency, which was the first kind of hint into what I'm doing right now. And then after all this, my friend came to me who was a founder of a eventually very successful crypto project. And he was also a medical school dropout. He just dropped out 2 years before I did. And he said, well, I need help with this, 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 and this. So I started helping him, and eventually that became a full-time thing for me. And that was how I got into the Web3 and crypto part of what I'm doing. So eventually the puzzles, came together. But, I think it's Steve Jobs saying that, like you cannot connect the dots, into the future. You can only connect the dots, looking backwards.
Then, because when was for you the moment that you decided to move to Dubai? Was that first you drove Uber, then you did some other school to please the others around you, a law school, whatever, and all the side jobs? Then the crypto project came along, but at some point you made quite a hard cut decision to move to Dubai. What
Yeah.
was the build up towards that?
Well, funny enough, all these dots started connecting. And at a certain point, and that's exactly when I knew this was going to be my cue, was when the crypto project became very successful. That was finally time where I allowed myself to officially finish all the studies that I was just kind of, half-assing, or not even, quarter-assing, to be honest. And literally just dropped out from all these endeavors. Because to be honest, I was already working full-time while studying, law school, for instance. And I finally allowed myself to be like, all right, well, this is successful enough. So this is a big excuse. The excuse is big enough for me to say, I'm not going to do the studies because this became such a huge opportunity that I have to pursue that opportunity, not only full time, but actually, it my whole heart and my whole time. And uh, once we reached a certain level of success with the crypto project, I have got to Dubai quite randomly because we went there for a business trip with that project. So still on behalf of them, that was my first, connection to Dubai, and I have found out amazing people, amazing connection. I finally felt surrounded by people that are like-minded and that have similar life goals. So,
What do you mean by that?
well, they were also just heavily driven, and they were also working really hard. And all of them have the different backgrounds and different kind of starts, the same way as I did. And I finally felt supported and understood by people around me there. So I found really great people. And very soon after that, since the crypto project was very successful, it allowed me to basically start my own company. And by combining the Web3 experience or the crypto experience, plus the recruiting experience that I had from one of my jobs before, and having a little bit of a network in Dubai, plus also a certain amount of savings and kind of like a safety net build up, I've decided just to mix all of that and see what happens. But I also knew that it's possible. I'm just gonna burn through all the cash I have, and I will have to find a job again, maybe somewhere more traditional. But I was willing to take the risk of like, well, when, if not now, because I have the opportunity, I can combine these things that are quite specific, find my niche market, and just try to go all in on that. So that's when I also went all in with all my basically life savings to just play this card. And I probably wouldn't do that if I was, 10 years older, probably, with more, commitments, kids, and so on. But I could because I was 25 and or 26, I don't know right now. And at that point, I'm still very happy for the decision, even if it meant that I would just burn through the cash and had to find something more traditional after.
How did your family and your surroundings react to that? Because first you drop out, then, well, you kind of drop out, then you work your ass off, then you finally cut the ropes and work on a project that you were working on all the time. That's finally something is working. Then from that something that's working, then it's already like, okay, wait, sure, maybe it's a phase, maybe it's a thing. You'd probably hear that, like maybe it's a phase. And that phase had another because I know how
We
it felt.
can zoom in on that later.
I know how that feels.
Yeah.
It's a phase you're in right now. And then you just throw a curveball at them. No, it's not a phase. I'm moving to Dubai. Like, what kind of courage did it take for you to do that?
Well, the reality of life, as we just said, and having being real here. I'm also gonna say, well, you can either be very sure about what you're doing and just almost psychotically go after something and be like, not to be too French, so scrap everything else. I'm just gonna do this, and whoever doesn't understand me, can go to hell. It doesn't really work like that. You can also work in a way of saying, well, I'm gonna go and try this, and we'll see. So to be very honest, what I did, and I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way, it's just how life is. I said, well, I was always kind of underselling my excitement and my commitment to certain things that I knew that wouldn't really resonate with my family, let's say. So, when that opportunity came and I, took it and I just went, okay, let's start business in, doing recruiting in Web3 in Dubai. I basically just, told my like, look, I'm coming there for a while. I'm gonna test the water. I'm gonna see how it is. Even though I already knew that, this is it, this is exactly what I wanted to do, and this is what I wanted to do when I do that. So, really just like all cards on the table, this is how I played it. And yeah, eventually you just, keep on, saying like, kind of saying more and more about it, and you were kind of proving your interest and genuine kind of like obsession almost. And at some point, you stop pretending and underselling your excitement about all this, and how genuinely committed you are to your goals. And eventually you allow yourself to be like, well, I'm doing this for this exact reason. And I hope you understand, so when you talk to your guys, to your people, to your family, it's like, well, I hope you understand. I will appreciate if you can support me in this. I also understand if you don't, and if you cannot understand that, at least for now. But I have a certain plan. I want to do this, and it's basically kind of take it or leave it. So at a certain point, you just lay down all the cards on the table, but you also don't have to do it right away. And I also don't really think it's the best idea. Because really, life is, not just, black and white. It's very, like there's a lot of shades, a lot of different colors. So you have to also be honest to you, be like, well, it is possible that I wouldn't like it. It is possible that I would be just, having like pink glasses on whenever I was in Dubai, and I would just feel like it's amazing because I was there only for a few weeks or a few months. Maybe I would have found that it's actually much harder than I thought, and or whatever. And I'm not as excited about it as I was in the beginning. So it's possible, but people eventually have to take it how it is. And one great way to get out from this kind of doubts of your surroundings is just to be successful, because eventually you will start taking care of them. You will prove repeatedly that your choice was the right one, by the facts, by your lifestyle and the way how you can actually support and help them back home. um, and this is one of the ways out from this kind of uh, never-ending doubt of like, you're doing it so differently. Why are you doing it? Isn't it just a phase or whatever? It's like, well, uh, at a certain point, you're doing it for long enough, and you become big enough and successful enough in it to prove them wrong.
Everyone is right until they are not.
Yeah, exactly, and it's true because look, it's also like, yeah, movie versions, real life versions, right? And yes, it is true that in the beginning, it's probably very risky decision, and people around you are trying to protect you. And this is really from their best intentions. They're like, well, if you save so much money, don't burn it on this one thing, right? Or like, if you really found your passion, don't you just want to take a kind of slower road to that? Because it is true that it's extremely painful, and the people around are trying to protect you from the pain. So either they already know it's painful, or they just know what others taught them. So like, I do understand that. It is it is disheartening when everyone is like, just come back home, just like, it really starts playing on your feelings. It's like, just come back home, it's so much more fun, so much nicer you're around, and you also kind of miss that, because that life is very comfortable. Being stuck is very comfortable. And so eventually you just have to keep on saying no to very comfortable life, and to very also, life full of love and, other happiness. But yeah, it's very hard roads, to be honest. And you will never be sure if you took if you made the right decisions. Really. Like, and I don't think I'm at a point yet, and I'm not gonna be for a few years, that I would say 150% sure this was the best decisions I could have made. Well, it was the best decisions I done, given the circumstances back then. But maybe, like, I never know what could have happened if I didn't do certain kind of things. So, um, only time will tell. And eventually, it's like, just do what feels right for you. Try to keep the people around you in mind. Don't be completely like ruthless, but yeah, do what feels right.
How was it okay, then you arrive in Dubai, then you decide to go all in, then just start. what do you do when you start? You need to have your first clients. Need to have your first things rolling in to actually get money until you're burned out of your savings and need to go back. What did you do? Like,
Well, you need an extreme amount of luck. Let's be honest about that one. But there's a certain ways how to improve your chances. I did always take care of my relationships to the best I could. I was one of the guys, that is probably very easy to talk to. I always genuinely cared about other people's, success and well-being and all that. And that helped me create few great relationships. And I was also extremely lucky because 6 months into having the business, I found probably until this day one of the best, or let's say biggest clients I could have. And it became very quickly. I had to be ready for that. Like, so let's be honest. Like, if I had this opportunity and not being able to, have enough skills and work hard enough, I would probably lose it within a few weeks. But we also were ready just to take whatever. And so, so basically, how it happened was I went through all my contacts. I said, "Hey guys, this is what I've started. This is what I'm doing," and I literally had a website built on the Wix.com builder that I did myself. I did my whole copy. I just, took some templates, played around with it, and this was my website. I sent it to all the people that I met, and I said, "Hey, genuinely, also hands on the table. This is exactly what I want to do now. I'm trying to pursue this. If you can connect me with someone, please do." And I didn't go to literally everybody. I wasn't the guy being like, okay, let me go to my friends from elementary school, because that is not the right audience. I was doing a B2B business in a very niche sector. It didn't make sense for me to do like the kind of crazy thing where you just text all your whole contacts, in your phone, or all your Facebook friends. Well, it was a B2B niche business. I went to all the people from that niche though, and I said, "This is what I'm doing." Then from basically, and the way how I got this first, basically not first, but this big client 6 months in, was literally just by someone who knew someone who knew me. So it was like, not even like a direct connection. It was like two intermediaries there, two certain persons there. And I got a sales call. The guy was coming late. I didn't know. So like, I was just like, "Oh, let me wait a few minutes." The guy literally took the call from a taxi, just drove to his office, just like this. And I had about 60 seconds to grab his attention to prove that, I'm worth talking to longer. We did that. Eventually, we had another proper call because he liked what he heard in those kind of 3 initial minutes. There was supposed to be original like a half an hour call. So we were like, "Yeah, whatever. I like it. Let's do another call." We did a second call. And at the second call, they assigned us about 3 positions, 3 different positions we would hire for. And we did everything we could to be the fastest and the best in the delivery, because we were like, this is a potentially big fish. We have to just amaze them. We have to excite them with the results. We did that. We delivered, crazy results within like a week. And then on the call with the client, where we presented these results, they have mentioned something like, "Oh, we probably will hire much more people, so maybe like if you guys have whatever some other offering, some other different business model that we could use for the bigger scaling." I was like, "Oh sure, we have that," and we didn't have anything like that. But I just drafted something crazy, and I was like, "Okay, well, if you're serious about it." And at that moment, I was just back in Czech Republic for a while. I was like, "Well, if you're serious about this collaboration, I will be in Dubai within a week." And I just booked my flights because of this. I was like, "Okay, let's risk it again." I went back to Dubai. I was like, "Well, this is the plan. This is what we can do for you." And they're like, "Okay, well, we like it. We made a few tweaks." And within 6 months of the business, we brought this big client in that was bringing us about $42,000 on a monthly retainer. So this was the big thing. And I was extremely lucky. I was also working very hard for it, and I just risked it a little, and it worked out, and that gave me the opportunity to build my business properly, because we had this big client locked in for a good amount of money that just allowed me the breathing space to, in the meanwhile, figure out everything else about how to run a company and how to build the whole structure and everything else. So yeah, the clients are the most important part, and I didn't have any proper structures before I got this first big client. But if you have sales, you have everything else.
How did you set up those structures? Like what? Okay, you signed the client, then you need to deliver. Okay, you found out to deliver. Then what? Like, how do you build such a backend? How do you build such a thing and learn how to do that? Like, what do you need to do for that?
Well, so let's say that you know how to do the delivery, right? And the delivery can be, sometimes you have people who are like, oh yeah, I know everything properly and I have everything optimized and all this. And then they go and sell their services. Well, it was very messy in the back end, but it worked, right? So sometimes the sheer volume, sometimes the sheer amount of hours that you put in something can just be, as successful, sometimes more successful than people with optimized processes that are only working, their 8 hours, which is actually kind of like 6 hours a day, because they also take a coffee break and a lunch and whatever else. So I have very quickly hired people from my network, but basically friends, which was not the best decision in the long term, but it was a great solution in the short term.
Why not?
Because eventually when you're hiring very quickly, so you hire your friends because that's the only people you can trust. But not all the time they are the most qualified. And so you basically, I just needed the hands. I was like, I will teach you everything. Stop whatever you're doing. I have this big client. I can pay you well. Let's do this. Let's just try to do, the impossible, and just by the sheer volume and amount of hours we put into this, be more successful, and more efficient than our competition. So this is how we did it. But eventually, yeah, one of the reasons why you don't hire your friends is because you will come to the decision where you like, are we friends or are you my employee? And it's very hard to be both unless you proper kind of like values set up before that. But you also, if you're running your first company at when you're 25, you probably don't know how to do that. You don't know how to be adult enough about it. So it was like the whole thing about hiring my friends. But anyway, that helped me. I hired a few people. Okay, well, let's just put a sheer volume. And in the meanwhile, let me find out how the business is running, and what else do I need. Well, you can obviously access an insane amount of knowledge on YouTube, or on Google. So you figure out a few things, and then the same way as you got your clients brought to you, you go to your network and you say, guys, I just need this and that. Please help. And you would be curious. You would be very surprised how far your like second and third degree network can go, and like how great people you can attract by through that. So I needed the whole thing about the finance and the company setups and all that, because at that time we were all freelancers, just kind of together invoicing for our services. So like, okay, how can we put a proper company? So I got into touch with amazing finance manager who also knew crazy amount of things about the company setups in Dubai, and he was also working with a few free zones there. So like, okay, amazing. And I just sat with him for long hours, and I think he enjoyed working with such a young, naive, and yet very quickly growing startup. So he was actually just laying all the knowledge and all the base for us, so for the kind of legal, basically from the finance and the structure kind of point of view. I did have a contact with a great lawyer that we were using before with the crypto start. So I said, well, I also need your help. So I was just talking with all the best people I could speak with, because also since we had the sales and we had the revenue, we could afford to talk with these people. And anyway, for the first consultations or whatever, kind of for free, because it's kind of the the intro to it. But you're also able to pay these people. So this coming back to how did we do it? Well, we had the sales, so we could figure out everything else. And then, yeah, I taught all my friends, basically all these friends that I hired, there was about 4 of them, how to do the things. And I just let them do it themselves. And in the meanwhile, I just withdraw myself from the equation, of like hands-on recruiting or whatever, selling, and just figuring out everything else. I was like, okay, guys, you have to do this somehow. And I had one employee from back then that was the only one employee that started me when I started my company. And it was the one guy that I hired on a part-time basis, and I was just literally paying him from my savings. And that one knew the most. I was like, okay, you're the manager. You're going to tell the rest. I need to do everything else. And in about another 6 months, we had the proper structure and everything in place. And we were looking for more clients beyond that big retainer that we had. And we're working, building on top of that ever since, basically.
That's really impressive. And I think one of the key lessons that you can take out of that for the people who are listening, it's also a really famous Alex Ramosi quote. It's paying down your ignorance debt.
Yeah.
Literally paying down your ignorance debt. You did not knew, you knew the people.
Yeah.
So you paid the people, so you knew.
Exactly. And, don't like get me wrong. I said that everything else was built on top of that. Well, the company over the past 4 years went about this close to bankruptcy or almost past bankruptcy, which is like, somehow miraculously being saved about 5 times. Like it is as, whatever the people tell you on the internet, how hard it is exactly that hard. But it's also impossible, to kind of like, convey the experience on you. Like I cannot just make you feel how I felt, or how I feel a lot of times. And you just keep surviving. So my idea about the business is, it's a survival game, actually. So, this is just my take on business, and, it might not be the right one. We will see in a few years. You guys either see me in, even bigger podcasts. The proper studio, exactly, or in a big studio, exactly, proper setting, or I will be just applying to work for you. But the way how I see it is actually a survival game. So let's say that you really care about your clients. You try to do, and you're doing your best, and you're improving what your best is, right? So you keep on improving by doing that, and trying to learn more and more. You are good to people and to your clients and partners and to your employees. So the people want to stay with you and come back to you, right? So either, for employees, they are incentivized to stay because it's a great work culture. For the clients, they are coming back because they just feel, taken care of, well nurtured and all that. So you keep taking care of the people that you already have basically around you. You try to learn, and then you try to survive. Because if you just survive and you do these things, well, don't just survive, by default, the business is growing. Because even if you were the slowest company in the world, there is still this kind of compound interest of how you take care of your clients, and eventually them bringing you more clients. Even if it was that each of your clients only bring you one more client once a year, it's doubling every month, every year. And it's probably more because in the meanwhile, you have your sales also running, right? So if you do all these things, eventually you will see the growth of the company as actually exponential growth, because it's always X2, right? So it's compound interest thing. Exponential growth of your company by almost just surviving. But the surviving is just the hardest thing to do, because there will always be something that you didn't expect and that you have to spend money on, and it just doesn't work. And it's also one of the things that a lot of, if it's like young entrepreneurs listening to this, especially, a lot of times it will happen, especially in the beginning, that you will simply have a client who you deliver for and they will not pay you. It's just like, and everything I did, to just prevent that. But, that happened to us a few times. It also almost got us bankrupt once or twice, where we would just deliver and everything was fine. And we were like, okay, amazing. We're expecting this invoice to be paid, and it has never been paid until today. So like these are the things like this was invoices aren't being paid. People leaving the company trying to steal your leads and steal your business. Like all of these things. Once again, I'm just another quite small guy speaking talking about this, but these things will happen. So eventually, it is survival game.
Life is fired at you point blank.
Yeah, yeah, and in the meanwhile, you have personal life, and personal crises, people close to you passing away, and whatever, girlfriends breaking up with you, and either whatever your own medical, conditions or whatever, and this you never know what's gonna happen. It's always gonna come at you, right? So, I'm also still in the phase of just getting used to how hard life can hit. And I'm not really sure that anyone can ever properly, just make a peace with that. But you are getting more and more resistant the more you are in the game.
2 questions, and 1 summary. Well, I know Chris Williamson had a quote, well, at least I heard it at his podcast, where he said, you cannot learn in 2D what you need to experience in 3D. So of course you can hear about it right now, about people stealing your leads. We can talk about how you can put that in the contract and how they need to pay a fee if they steal your leads. You can contract people up front that they need to pay you if deliverables are met and all of that. But shit will hit the fan. Life is fired at you point blank. And of course, if you hear it right now, please, please, please do it. I just made my first contract and I tried to make it as solid as possible. And there's probably lots of gaps in that contract. Most of I will show it to you in a bit later. And I think you will laugh your balls out.
Yeah.
But you need to make those mistakes because that's how you learn. And another thing that I'm really curious about, you said it's about surviving and surviving in the long game. And that's why most companies don't even make it like 10 years. That's no statistics. Every time you came to the 0 point, you almost went bankrupt. Did you also saw the exponential growth after that? So yes, okay, it goes good. Fuck, I'm going bankrupt. I mean, bollocks, I'm going bankrupt. It's going good. I'm going bankrupt, but now it's going to be better than the time I got almost bankrupt before. Like, how is that? Because then it's
Well, yeah, unfortunately, people are, it's very easy to get used to your new standards, right? So, one great, so there's always the theory and then the reality of life. And in the theory, you should be, remembering the points where, like where you started and all that. But, well, it's not really true, you just get very used to the new standard of your life, and that's what you also we will always want, and you will always measure your baseline on the highest, what you've achieved. So, you will actually feel very frustrated because you saw it growing and it's going back down, and it feels like you are stuck in there forever. So, the way how we are approaching this in general is really about objectively measuring with other people, within your company of like, what is, how did we, where did we get, from the point, of the, let's say last, kind of point, another, point zero, whatever we had, right? So the kind of, what is helping us is objectively measuring it together with more people. And it also has to, in that case, you also have to open yourself and allow yourself to be a bit more, kind of fragile, basically, and opening up to your teammates about like, all right, it's not going well, because it can help you if you have the right team that can help you. So basically, the baseline will always, keep increasing, and so whenever you are having new baseline, you drop again. You really have to realize that, where this kind of point zero, where this kind of this low was the last time, and how did you improve from that? So rather than measuring on the peaks and basically comparing the peaks of your success or performance, as hurtful as it is, you should be measuring and comparing the lows. And because the new low is actually eventually will become better than one of the highs that you had in the past. And you also have to remember that all of what you're building is transitioning into not only into property of your company, but your own experience and your knowledge. And I like to, when it comes to really the hardest points, I come to the point of saying, what is the worst case scenarios? I love to work with the worst case scenario kind of thing. And basically what it means is very easy thought. It is what is the worst thing that can happen right now? So as long as you're in, doing all the whole business ethically and you're not scamming anybody, and you're not defrauding anybody, you literally look at it from, if we really go bankrupt, if actually I really lose all the assets that I've had until now, I really just, even lose the apartment I'm living in and whatever else, what is the worst thing that can happen to me? And I hope that most of the audience also has that one person. I probably have at least one person in my contact list, probably my mother, by the way, but like, whoever else it can be, that you can just call and be like, I lost everything. Can I go live with you for a while? So, okay, so if everything is if the shit really hits the fan, and I'm losing everything, I'm probably go live with my mother again, or with my parents, or, whoever else, or maybe my friends. I will live with them. And what do I do? Well, first of all, I will be very disappointed. So probably a few days in a kind of a depression. Then I will take some time to breathe and finally do things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do for 5 years, which is probably just playing video games, that I didn't have time for years now. So, I will spend probably 2 weeks of playing video games, and I will be, allowing myself to do that. And probably after a week, I'll be already bored by it. But anyway, I would give myself 2 weeks of playing video games, and then I would just slowly start building it up. And how do I do that? Well, I would start looking for a job. So I would just review my CV. I would, take that CV, and I would just hit all my network, because the network is something that I still have, people and contacts, I still have them, right? So I would just, talk with all of them, be like, hey, in all honesty, I lost my business. This is my CV. This is what I can do, and I can do it for you very well. And I'm willing to accept lower pay than I had before, or whatever. I just want, like, get a job. You get the job, and you are living with your mother or whoever else that is for, let's say, a year. You just keep saving as much money as possible. And let's say that whatever your income is, let's say that you can make $4,000 a month with that new job, somehow, or even 2,000, right? Whatever, really, wherever you are, it depends, right? And what your skill set is at that moment. Let's say that you can make $4,000 a month. In a year, you're probably able, if you're living with your mother or someone who lets you stay with them for free, you are probably able to survive at like $1,000 per month and still have quite a good lifestyle, probably whilst also paying the person some rent. If you really can have it for free, then it's probably like 500 it's enough, because the groceries are not more than that, and so you survive on the bare minimum. You do it for a year, and let's say that you really just save 3K a month. You are at 36K in a year. So let's say that you do it for a year and a half like this, you're at 54. Or, all the way to 2 years at 72. And at somewhere along that way, after a year and a half, you start, basically, most likely, you're already, from first 2 months, you know how to do that job, and you spend 8 hours on that. You spend another 2 hours every day after work, starting building something by yourself. That's also what I forgot to mention before. So you have about 10 hours in a week, probably 4 hours each day on the weekend. So I would say I would have had about 18 hours a week to build, start building something new. If you do it over a year, you probably already have a few paying clients, maybe as a freelancer doing that. And after a year and a half, while saving about 54K, let's say if we spoke about his 4K salary and spending only 1K, you have that with you. Plus, you've already started building something. You already have a client probably giving you extra income. And here you are, you can just leave the job, say, guys, I love what I did here, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I feel like I'm ready again, to pursue my entrepreneurial career. And in a year and a half, after you've been on your real bottom, you can get to a place where you have savings, you have something new started, and you already have paying clients there, and probably switching to full time doing even it's a freelancing, or maybe it's a startup that you have to raise money for. It depends what you want to do.
You
Yeah.
literally, you gave a roadmap to avoid any type of excuse that everyone ever has to not start.
Yes. And it's also really, and this is from going from zero. And I don't think that most of people would be starting from zero right now. I think they already, went like whatever, few levels ahead. So yeah, there's just no excuse. And if you look, just to get back from this huge tangent, if you work with the worst case scenarios, you also can't really lose. Like you can't lose. Like what is it that can happen to you? Like really, like, this is the worst thing that can happen. And it just sounds amazing to me. And I almost feel like this could be a fun thing to do. So if I didn't have my business, and of course already, I want to leverage what I already built. Whenever I speak about this, I'm like, this sounds fucking cool. This sounds so much fun. Yeah. So, losing actually becomes so exciting. You're like, well, I'm not really afraid to lose. So what is it about, like, why am I so depressed? Why I'm so frustrated? Well, probably because I'm just, comparing to the baselines that I've, built over the past. But that's bullshit, like you don't have to compare yourself to anything. You just do your best. And really, it does sound exciting anytime I spoke about these worst case scenarios, because it just sounds as a great scenario, to be honest.
It's also that if your life would be a movie, what would be the parts that the audience would enjoy the most? And then it's like those moments where shit hits the fan, where you need to do the work, are the moments that people enjoy watching. But those are the moments that you build your character. Those are the moments that you build up. And after years of building in Dubai, you at some point decided to leave Dubai when your company had a certain baseline. Well, leave because you're still registered there, and but now live in Lisbon. What made you think of that move to Lisbon?
Yeah, so basically, I'm still between Dubai and Lisbon, to be very honest. So it's not just mostly in Lisbon, but the business is officially operating from Dubai. We have our own team there. We also have a remote team, and now we are starting a new Lisbon office. To me, it was just a simple personal life decision. So it actually was my personal life bringing me to Lisbon. And it was also the fact that Dubai is amazing kind of jumpstart to, your entrepreneurial journey, to your career and all of that. But for instance, for me, it became almost toxic. And it's just because that I'm already, let's say, obsessed, or in a better words, like I'm fired up enough and excited enough about what I'm doing, that, this kind of, external, excitement, brought to me by the surroundings was actually becoming too overwhelming. So I always like to say this story where, when I was in Dubai and I was really working the hardest, I would be working every day between 10 to 12 hours. Basically coming to the office at 9 a.m. to, between 9 and 11, and then leaving the office, around 9 p.m. basically. So that's why I'm saying 10 to 12 hours. And I would just wake up, go to the gym, go to the office, stay there for 10 to 12 hours. Then I would take my friends, or, my friends, or would be already somewhere outside. Not, outside partying or drinking, but actually mostly just drinking tea and smoking shisha somewhere in the lounges there. So I would go and join them in the lounge. And these people were also very business oriented, very entrepreneurial. So we would just talk business until late hours. And then I would go sleep and wake up and do the same thing every single day. At a certain point, I didn't take a weekend off for, I think, about 3 months. But it did have a negative impact on my physical well-being, because I actually started feeling like a continuous pressure on my chest, which turned out just to be basically anxiety. But just I was just there was so much stimuli, so much kind of external triggers for me to work and work and work, that I just couldn't really stop. So that's actually basically when you take someone who's already obsessed enough, let's say, and you put them into even more obsessive kind of environment, it can become unhealthy to your physical health. So that's just one of the stories what happened once that I was there. And so eventually I also was seeking not really work-life balance, because it's kind of the word that everyone's talking now about, but basically really bringing kind of literally a fresh air into my life, and finding an environment where I can work hard, but the level of rest is also super high quality. So I was just lacking the good quality rest there. So right now we are it's probably around PM. We are sitting here at the office, and I was working until you came, right? And we are probably the only people, maybe like one of the 3 people in the whole building working here right now. You can still be very work focused, but for me the change of environment also helped my physical health, and eventually my physical health allows me to be even more efficient in my work. So it kind of comes hand in hand, and that's why I was also kind of making the move to Lisbon, not only for my personal life, but also for actually my health and well-being.
And when I was studying theater, because my whole background is I'm officially an actor, made theater plays, directed things. When I was directing a play, I always had the saying that I would say to my actors, it's you don't need to paint red roses red. And I think that saying reflects your story as well, because you were already hardworking. You were already putting in the hours. You were already obsessed with what you're doing. So you were already a red rose. So why do I need to paint the red rose even more red by giving it steroids or
Exactly.
whatsoever?
Exactly. And I will just say, Dubai is definitely one of the factors that help my personal and our company success, because of the type of people that I got to surround myself with. Lisbon right now is the place where I get to look at my own really health a bit more, and I also would say that what is important, at least what really helped me in the whole career and the kind of personal development, was actually what you are doing right now, by the way, which is actually traveling around and getting to live like locals in different places of the world. Because it's not just about a tourism, because if I went to Dubai for a trip as a tourist, my perception of the place would be also completely different, by the way. But most importantly, I couldn't, we wouldn't really, you don't really feel what the place actually is, and it doesn't give you the kind of, cultural and basically kind of education into like kind of like, it doesn't enrich you with all this experience. So I also do enjoy living in different places of the world, and let's say not always switching. Eventually, my idea is also to settle down in where exactly it felt the best, and maybe where it will feel the best, given my circumstances, having children on, and other commitments and other, goals in life eventually. But that helps incredibly because it allows you to talk with so many different people on their level. It gives you so much, insight into life and how to take certain things not as seriously, and at the same time how to be open to other things. So yeah, getting maybe back to you and what you're doing, and the whole name of this podcast, right? It is uh, being in different places helped me personally, business wise, and or even health wise. Probably is one of the cornerstones of my, let's say, success.
Uh, One um, thing I want to dive into that you've mentioned before is that you have a remote team. What positions, because of course this is Digital Nomad podcast, so it's people who aspire to travel or people who are already doing it, business owners, everything within that. You're my niche. What remote positions are mostly hired from your experiences that can easily be done remote? And then from a business perspective, as a business owner myself as well, building a business and at some point need to build a remote team as well, because I'm not done with traveling yet. How do you manage a remote team properly?
Um, People have to understand that it's always a trade-off. And if you want to be free in the sense of movement of where you want to be, you have to give something else in exchange. And that is a crazy amount of like work ethics that you have to have if you want to be given the opportunity to work completely remotely and being paid fairly, interestingly, let's say, or compensated well. That's just first thing to say, because that comes, to both of the questions that you had. I will start with the second one, which is, how do you manage the whole remote team? I'm a person that enjoys so much to build an on-site culture because I just love to talk with people, and I care about their body language, because that can tell you so much about how they feel about what they're doing and all that. So that being said, I do have a part of my team being fully remote, and all of these people have to prove already in the interviews that the amount of self-discipline and work ethics they have to actually be working every day without anyone else just asking them every hour or every other, half an hour what they're doing, or, without them needing to track it somewhere in their whatever system they are using, let's say ClickUp or some other, time tracker of the tasks that they are using for those teams. So firstly, you have to be able to ensure your employer, basically as a talent, to that you can work by yourself and you can do it well. And when I'm managing the teams, I'm looking for people that are basically self-manageable really well, and there is very clear objectives. So, and that would be just the results. The uh my responsibility as a team leader of a remote team is to have very clear objectives of what the people have to do as a baseline of like what is the just like the must to be done every single week. And then the people can be full remote and they have flexible hours. But I have to be able to narrow down exactly what I want from them. So there's a lot of communication, especially in the beginning. There's a lot of kind of online training and a lot of online communication of like what is exactly expected from them. And if there's any troubles with it, I'm happy to reason with them about why this something can be done or cannot be done. But it also has to come with certain kind of data or some kind of proof of like, why is this possible or not possible, and how shall we tweak it? And every employer will be happy to have a conversation, because probably there's other people in the same role being remote, that are doing that, and maybe there's things that you can't do. So this is how I manage it. I really understood that it's my responsibility. And if the people are not performing well, I have to say why, right? So and it should be quite simple. Either they are not doing their tasks, or they are doing the tasks, but somehow, it just doesn't, translate into results. I have to check first on my end if I communicated it well, and if this kind of conversions are possible, or why doesn't it work? Doesn't it work for them, and it did for me or the others? So I think it's a huge amount of that. And then when I communicate as well, I should be able, and that's what we actually managed to do, is to have Monday kickoff meeting and then Friday report meeting. That's how we do it. With especially, let's say, we have all of recruiters, all of salespeople working for us. It's all what I need because they know exactly what they should be doing. And every Friday, I can see if these things were done or not. So it will take me maximum 5 days of them being not, really fulfilling their responsibilities to realize that, there's something wrong. And I'm willing to give myself the freedom of like, okay, I might be missing on a few days of someone being passive. But I'm also giving them the chance of like work less one day and just like make up for it the other day night or whatever, that's how
As long as you meet your deliverables.
Exactly. So it has to be very, very well structured. And the second part is like what roles are the best, to do online. Well, at this moment, anything can be done online, right? What are the roles that we would be most actively hiring for? So let's say it can. Well, what I would always say to young people, if they don't have any technical background, is of course sales, but it's because I'm coming from sales and I'm coming from that being my background as well. Now, it's also because it can be done remotely.
I'm really biased there because my background is sales. From sales, I went to marketing, etc.
Exactly. No. So, and because that is also the easiest for your manager to track. It's very simple deliverables because basically either you get clients, either or not, right? Or let's say either you generate conversations at least, right? Like a lot of times we talk about with our salespeople about the amount of conversations they have generated, because sometimes it might be just the problem of not enough training from our side that they are not converting those open conversations somehow. But anyway, I think that is like, probably what everyone will tell you, because it's also easy for me to manage my online sales team because really, either the numbers are there or not, and the numbers don't really lie. And maybe you are unlucky for, a week or two, but, overall in a month or in a, quarter, it should kind of, average itself out. And if you have two salespeople working on the same kind of niche or similar niche, the results should be also comparable. And then once again, you look at yourself, as the employer, if there's anything that you're doing wrong, and then you're looking if there's anything that maybe they are not doing. So yeah, sales is a great example, but pretty much any job can be done online right now. So it's all about jobs that are kind of like easier to outline the deliverables. And that could be also recruiting. That could be also marketing. That could be, coding, of course. We skipped the whole topic, of engineering, because there's lines of code that you can write or review and all that. So for anyone who is listening, who wants to be a digital nomad, travel around the world, well, learn to do something that can be, actually, it's an interesting take, that can be easily trackable by your manager, because that's the jobs that you're probably going to get the remote job the easiest. And if you're good at that, you will prove that very easily,
That is actually a really interesting take, because literally it's like, oh, but do what you love to do and then do it remote. Yeah, but it's not trackable for manager. So then, it's nice. And also, for example, copywriting. I'm having a client of mine, because I have two companies. I have Craft Consulting, where we help people integrate AI and my sales funnels and everything, and basically save them time, make more money. That's the promise there. And I had myself as a freelancer, sales and marketing consultant, where I sell, get commissions, and everything. And I always say the business is the thing I build and grow, and me myself as a freelancer, because I have a companion in the business, is the thing that keeps me learning. So for me as a freelancer, I have a client right now where I do copywriting. Well, that's the perfect thing when you're doing ad copy. Ad copy does not lie. Advertisement copy, it either brings results or not. So it's really easy to track. And you have X amount of copywriting that you need to deliver. For example, 10 emails, which 3 need to push a call, 2 need to push a webinar, 5 are value emails, for example. That's a really easy deliverable. 5 ad scripts by the end of the week. Really easy deliverable. And it's really easy to track because your copy has either results or it has not. So, and copywriting is just sales through words. I was able to do that because of sales, of marketing, and now developing a new skill within that with my learning school that's called freelancing.
Yes. And you also said it right, it's about, well, what is your passion? So I really am a person, and maybe there's people that know exactly what the passion is, and that's amazing. They should do as much as possible of exactly that thing, and try to make it as profitable as possible. Um, I don't really think that like a certain thing, like that everybody, and I would assume that basically most of the people don't have a exact passion for exactly one thing. You probably are kind of like, you kind of know where you want to go, but you kind of just like taking little turns, like, oh, doesn't really work. This is the right direction, but like a little bit, to the side and all that. And eventually, uh, yes. So if you are taking all these hints on your path of like, oh, this is kind of a nice path, but there's this problem, so let me just give you a little of these nudges to one side and just say, well, if your objective is to travel the world and always work remotely, take this as one of the factors into your decision-making process or your path creating process and do something that has a high probability of being, done remotely. And that's kind of back to the topic of, or something that probably has very easily measurable deliverables, because you can always go either as a full-time employee or as a freelancer. You can go to the business and say, well, I can do this, and this is how it translates to your business, and this is what I'm charging for it, which should be probably less than is the value that you're creating for them. So basically, you provide more value for the money, right? And if you do that with enough businesses, it doesn't matter if you're a freelancer, a little bit, a small business, a big business, or just looking for a job. Well, if you just, really sell yourself like this, it's just very easy to be like, well, yeah, these emails bring you this amount of business. Isn't it worth to pay me this, fraction of that revenue I can generate for you? What easy is that?
I always say, fuck up and figure out.
Also that, yeah. And this is the whole life, like you have to just, yeah, kind of steering the wheel, right? And just the whole thing is really like, don't get into anything shady. If it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. It really is. Don't scam people. Don't do any fraudulent kind of stuff. Uh, you know, try to be tiny bit better. Not even every day. Like some days just be stagnant. Or even lose a few brain cells if you need to. But like, let's say week to week or month to month, try to be a little bit better. And it's gonna be fun. You're gonna be fine, really. Remember the worst case scenarios.
I think we can keep on talking for hours when it comes about business, when it comes about strategies, when it comes about life in general, experiences and things to gain. But for now, I think we keep it the way it is. And I always have this last question. If there's just one thing that you really want to say to someone who made it this far in the podcast, listening, watching, whatever they're doing, what is that one thing that you really want to say to them?
That's a good question. Summarizing the whole whatever hour we're talking now in one sentence is probably that your intuition will really help you in your life. So if you feel not really if you really feel this kind of whisper or listen to this kind of whisper that is kind of helping you or pushing you into a certain direction, it is probably the right one because it will feel right. You will feel better about yourself when you start listening to this little voice and it makes sense. And when you listen to this little whisper and don't listen to the first person that is just trying to, just pull you away, pull you back from that. Um, think about what is the worst thing that can happen. And if it sounds actually exciting, like I just mentioned today, that's probably the right goal.
If people want to follow up on you, follow up on your business when it comes to recruitment or Web3 and everything, I will leave everything in the description. It's probably LinkedIn, website.
Exactly. LinkedIn is the biggest medium I'm using right now. So that's definitely one where you should follow me. It's where I'm the most active. But you can also see our website. And if you're interested about recruiting and our company talking with interesting entrepreneurs, we will be also adding a YouTube channel soon where people can listen to more about how to hire, but also how to being hired, not only in the Web3 space.
Cool. This will be online within 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's online then, but I will text you. It's going to be fine.
Perfect.
And then I maybe see you in Dubai because I'm there in August, or we go for a coffee in Prague because I'm going there tonight.
Depends, there's unlimited possibilities. We'll definitely see each other again. Thank you for having me.
It would be in Lisbon probably. All right. Like, subscribe, do little rain dance, all that crap. Visionaries. I see you later. Ciao.